We're going to continue with the final few Simonei HaSeder. So tonight is the 8th Shir on the Simonei HaSeder, so it's appropriate as 8 represents Shemer Hekef, represents transcendence. So God willing, we will get to the point to explain the 15th level, the 15th Madrega, the level of Nirtzah. So let's just conclude first a little bit talking about, we concluded yesterday speaking about the Kois Shel Eliyahu, which is called the Kois Chamishi. And now we're going to speak a little bit about the next stage in the Haggadah, which is the next simon, which is Halel. So Halel is the second part of Halel. On this night, we divide Halel into two. So the first part of Halel speaks about, which we say before the second cup, drinking the second cup, speaks about Yitzias Mitzrayim, Mitzeis Yisrael Mitzrayim, according to the Beis Hillel, which we're talking about not only Alu Avdei Hashem, that we're now connected to Hashem, but we're also talking about the actual going out of Egypt. And the second part of Halel, post Beirach, is all going to speak about the future. So the whole idea of the Seder night, which we talked about, which is the idea of Magid, is that we start off just like Klal Yisrael started off in Egypt. They started off in Mitzrayim in a level where their dibur was in a constricted place. Their dibur was in exile. It was Golas HaDibur. And through the process of Magid, which is speaking through the Meitzar Agorim, through the place of your constrictions, through the throat, and speaking it out, expressing it, this is the process of Geulas HaDibur, the redemption of speech, that speech is now becoming revealed. So the speaking, and the ultimate form of speaking, is to be grateful and thankful. This is the ultimate expression of speaking. There's it's brought down B'Shem in the name of the Arizal. The Kaf HaChaim brings it down, the Rechaim Simon Samach, and the Chidah brings it down, the Midbar Kadmos in Zion, that when we say in davening, right before the reading of the Shema and the Birchas Shema and the blessings of Shema, we say we say to thank you. So this is, the Arizal says these are connected, these few verses, few words that we say are connected to the 6 remembrances that we have to remember every day. So L'hoides L'cha, to give thanks to you, corresponds to the story of Miriam speaking what we'll call Lashon Hara, negative speech against Moshe Rabbeinu. Like we said, that the entire idea of Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel being in Egypt, was that Moshe was wondering why was Klal Yisrael stuck in Egypt, and he realized because their speech was in exile, that they weren't able to speak, and if they did speak, they spoke Lashon Hara, negative speech, and just pitput dvarim, just blabbering type of speaking. So the tikkun for that, says the Arizal, is on this word, L'hoides L'cha, to give thanks to you, and in the language of the Ari, Hapen Nivra L'hoides L'Hashem, that ultimately the entire mouth is created to sing Hashem's praise, to sing praise, to sing Halal. So this is the redemption of speech. Now we go from a place where our speech is constricted, and there's a Golas HaDibur, and there's a brokenness, there's a Yachatz that represents the brokenness, that's pre-verbal brokenness, and then we come to the final expressions of Halel Nirtzah, we were able to express and give thanks and be grateful for all the miracles and all the wonders that that we experience in our life. And this is what the idea of Halal actually means in Hebrew, is Balul Nere, that Halal comes from the word praise, but also comes from the word to bring light, to draw out light. So we're going from the place of darkness to a place where we're in a place of constriction and a place of Mitzrayim, of Metzar, of exile and constriction and stuckness, to a place where we're able to express and to offer, and light can be expressed. This is what the Laila Hazeh, that the Laila Hazeh, this night, like we mentioned very quickly when we talked about Manishtana, that the Laila, which represents the feminine, Laila is Malchus, which represents the feminine, which is darkness, but tonight, Laila is called Hazeh, which is masculine. So tonight there's a yichud, there's a unity between the feminine and the masculine, which means that there's a revealed opening for tonight. And therefore, says the Shalach Kodesh, when we say Halal on the night of Pesach, we should say it with great joy and great trepidation and awe. So we're moving into the second higher level of Lahoides Lecha, to offer thanks and to anticipate the future and to dream about the future. If you recall, before we spoke about the first part of Halal, we asked the question was asked by the Rishonim already. The question was asked by the Shibali Aleket and by the Ran, or Haigon. Then he asked this question of why don't we make a blessing for a bracha for Halal? Why don't we say today, before we start singing the Halal, like we say every single time we're supposed to, there's a takana, there's an obligation, not just a minhag, not just a custom, to say Halal, we actually say Halal with a bracha. And on the night of Pesach, so the Mishnah says, there's a Mishnah in Tzadikeh, the Mishnah says that what is the difference between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni? What is the difference between the first Pesach and the second Pesach, which would be on the 14th of the next month of Iyar? So the Mishnah says that Harishon ta'un halal b'chilasei. The first one, you need to sing halal while you're eating, and on the second Pesach Sheni, you only need basiyasam, only when you're offering the actual offering of the offering of the Korban Pesach, you have to say shira. But on the night of Pesach, like we said, that the whole idea of the shira becomes part included within the eating of the food. That Shulchan Aruch, the idea of eating the meal, also becomes part of Lahoides Lecha, part of this process, of this posture of being grateful. So the question was asked, why don't we say Halal? Why don't we say a bracha on this night's Halal? And this is one question. And the other questions, which we didn't ask, but these are also very important questions to understand what this Halal is all about, this idea of being grateful and being thankful for the miracles for the future, in anticipation for the future, is that the Mishnah Megillah, Daf Chav Amud Beis, says that Halal is one of the mitzvahs that we perform during the day. So this is a question. So why do we say Halal on the night of Pesach, which is something that's unusual that we're saying Halal? That's another question, besides the question of why we don't make a blessing. Also, the Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim in Tav Chav Beis rules with the laws of saying Halal. The Shulchan Aruch rules that when we say Halal, generally we have to stand. You have to stand up to say Halal. There's different halachas about intermission, whether you're allowed to answer certain things during Halal, because Halal is seen as a very important thing and something you should do standing up on the night of the Seder. If you just realize, you'll see that tonight you sit, you recline maybe even, but you're sitting during the process of Halal. So the reason why we don't make a blessing, and the reason why we say Halal even at night, and the reason why we say it's sitting down, is all because tonight, like the Ran brings down in the name of Rabbi Haigon, because tonight the idea of saying Halal is not Halal as Kriya, the Kriyas Halal, to read the words of Halal, but tonight it's spontaneous. It has to do with the Shira. We're singing a song. It's all part of the being grateful and being thankful. And in this posture of being grateful and thankful, we also sing the Shira. And this answers a very interesting question, which is a machlokes, an argument between the Rishonim and the Ran. And the Ramah rules like the Ran. The Ramah in Simon Taf Ayin Zayin rules that just like the law is that we try to finish to eat the afikoyim before chatzos halayla, before midnight, at least in the first night. Most people are makbid, are very careful to eat, which Machaber also rules. The Shulchan Aruch generally rules we should eat before midnight. So the Ramah rules that this also applies to halal. That v'yakdem atzah shegam halal yikra koydem chatzos. That we should also do it before chatzos. In other words, why? What's the connection, and why does these Rishonim say that we should read halal? Also, besides the little pshat, is because the halal that we're going to sing is part of the Korban Pesach. It's part of the celebration of Pesach itself that causes us to be in a state and in a condition of offering thanks, Lahoides Lecha, to sing Hashem's praise and to be grateful, and L'saper b'chol hanisim v'niflos, to speak about all the miracles and wonders that happen to us collectively in our own in our lives as a collective, as a people, and also in our personal lives, like the Pele Yoed says, to speak about the particular things in our life that are miraculous, and to speak about our freedom, to make sure that we're going through the process of Magid until we get to a place of Halal. And in Halal, we say the Shir, we say Yalukha, we say Nishmas Kol Chai, and we say the Halal, and this is what Halal is. Then comes the final step of the Agada. The final step of the Agada is very different than the other steps, because the other steps is Kadesh, which means you shall make Kiddush. Orchatz means you shall wash your hands. Magid means it should come through you maybe. But Moitzi, Matzah, Mara, these are all things they're proactive actions, meaning we're participating, we're doing something with it. What is Nirtzah? What is the idea of Nirtzah? Nirtzah means that that everything has been accepted. That it's Merutza. That everything has been accepted on high. Which Nirtzah is a passive act. We say that we've worked and we have moved all throughout these 14 stages of getting deeper and deeper to a place of a redemptive state, and finally comes the place of Nirtzah where we have just arrived. And at this place, where we just arrived, is a place of silence that's beyond sound. So we begin the whole Agada all about speech and about articulation, about voice, and to give voice to our silence. Like we explained in great detail that the people of Israel, Kal Yisrael, were in an entire state of Perek Shmois, that they weren't vayitzaku, there was no crying, there was no kvetching, there was no desire, there was no yearning. They were enslaved, which means there was no internal life to be expressed, and they had no voice. So we start off the entire Haggadah, the entire night of Seder, with the first thing that we speak after Kiddush is we say Hey Lachmanya, we say Hey, which is connected to the letter Hey, which is the idea of sound, which is the beginning of sound. The Hey Nivra Olam, the world was created through the letter Hey, so that means that's the beginning of sound. The Hey, now there's going to be the articulation of voice. With the 5, the Hey is also 5, with the 5 potentials of the mouth, with your teeth, your palate, your tongue, your throat, and your lips. These are the potentials of the mouth that are going to allow the perfect sound of Ha, of an exhale, to be articulated into speech. So we start off with the idea of a Hey Lachmanya. We would say this is the Hey, or Halachmanya, even though that's as well as a Hey. Then we come to the final point, which is Nirtzah, which very interestingly, the Nirtzah itself, that final simon, the final mark in the Seder night, is Nirtzah. The last letter of Nirtzah is a silent Hey. Nirtzah, it could be technically spelled without a Hey, but there's a silent Hey at the end. So we start off with a vocal Hey, and we end up with a silent Hey, because the idea of the redemption is in a process of getting closer and closer, and more clarity, and more emunah, and more faith, and more openness and expansiveness and connectivity and dveikus, that we go from a place where we need to speak, where our speech is constricted, and then our speech becomes freed, and we're able to express ourselves and to say magid, and even to sing praise and to say halal, until we get to a place that's a perfect, comfortable silence, which is a silence that transcends all sound, which is the idea of like when Klal Yisrael, when the people of Israel reach the point of the sea, when they reach the sea, it says, don't speak, why do you cry any longer? Which means don't speak. And the Zohar says, why not to speak and why not to pray? Because this is already the level of atik, of transcendence, of keser, which is the idea of a katalizer. Just be quiet and just be silent, because you have reached a point where you're so connected that it's just being present. It's not about processes, it's about presence. And this is the idea of Nirtzah. So we reach a point where there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to say, we're just in a being state. So we reach from the place of processes, which is the idea of like a Seder Hishtalshalos, like an order of things, where one thing leads to a next, one thing moves from one thing to the next, which by definition means that there's a hierarchy of movement. So the higher creates the lower, and the lower is dependent on the higher, until we reach a point which is everything that's beyond Seder. Even we reach a Seder of Nisim, in the words of the Maharal, which means we reach a level which is the order of beyond order of the miraculous. And therefore, the entire Seder plate and everything that we had so organized and set up and exactly in the spherotic levels where there's 3 and 3, and the Kair itself is Malchut, and you have the 3 matzahs with Chacham, Bin, and Das. Everything is, they have the entire 10 spheroids in front of you. Everything represents a very clear structure. Then we get to a place where everything becomes imploded, and you reach a place that's beyond Seder. So this is the level of Nirtzah, which is a perfect, profound, timeless silence. And this is the 15th state, the 15th progressive state of the Seder, which we said is also corresponds to the idea of the 5th, the level of Yechida. So it's like when you go up the 15 steps of the Beis Hamikdash, the 15 steps to get into the temple, into the Beis Hamikdash, then you reach the final step on the 15th step where there's no longer anywhere to reach higher, which means that you already arrived at its state of perfection. And this is the idea of Nirtzah. And on a deep level, it's possible that it says in Svarim that the idea of Nirtzah has the same numeric value as Moshe. It's 345. So what it actually means is that when you finally reach the peak of the Seder experiences, which we said, one of the reasons why Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned clearly in the Haggadah is because b'chol dor v'dor, b'chol yom v'yom, a person has to experience as if they're going out of Egypt, which means that you're actually experiencing the going out of Egypt. So therefore, you are on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu Kaviyachol, which is going out of Egypt. And now by Nirtzah, you actually reach the Atu Milsa Zutrasehi, that level of Moshe that exists within every single Yid. This is the level that we reach, and therefore the only other time where Moshe Rabbeinu's name is mentioned throughout the Seder is Vayiminu B'Hashem Moshe Avdai. When we say the Shira, it says Vayiminu B'Hashem, they believed in Hashem and they believed in Moshe, his servant. Say the Chassidic Rebbes, the Baditchever Rav says this, and other tzaddikim write that what does it mean Vayiminu B'Hashem Moshe Avdai? It means Vayiminu B'Hashem, they believed in God, and B'Moshe Avdai, they believed in Moshe, means they believed in themselves. In order for the seed to split, to go to the place of to be in a state of Yechida, to go to the 5th level, beyond Atik, they reached a level that Vayiminu B'Hashem or Moshe Avdei, they recognized their own spiritual potential, and the Moshe Rabbeinu, Ato Moshe Milti Zutusehi, the Moshe Rabbeinu within them, the Moshe, the element of Moshe. That's why we conclude Nirtzah. Most people conclude Nirtzah with the idea of Lashana Haba Yerushalayim. Next year we're going to be in Yerushalayim. So if you look at this the phrase that we're phrasing it is that next year we're going to be in Yerushalayim. How do we start the Haggadah? When we started the Haggadah with Heilach Ma'anya, Holach Ma'anya, we said Hashata Hacha, Lashana Haba B'nei Chayim, Hashata Av, Hashata Achach, Lashana Ba'ar Yisrael. We say this year we are here, and next year we're going to be in the land of Israel, the literal land and also the metaphoric land. What the land of Israel, the holiness, the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, the holiness of the land of Israel, what it represents. So we start off the Seder saying that we're here, which means we're in a state of exile, and Ashata Avdan, we feel ourselves as slaves, which means that we feel ourselves outside the Kedusha, outside the sanctity of Eretz Yisrael, of the Holy Land. Once we finish the Seder, we're holding already Nirtzah, we're saying L'shana Haba Yerushalayim. Shana Haba Yerushalayim means something different, which says that we're now already in Eretz Yisrael. We're not saying that next year we're going to be in Eretz Yisrael. We're saying we're already in Israel, and now in Israel itself, we want to be in a state of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is Yira Shalem, perfect Yira, perfect awe, perfect transcendence, perfect state of unity. So this is what we're moving towards to the direction. So we get to the final place of Nirtzah, where everything is accepted on high, and we reach a level of Yechida. We finally reach a place where we feel ourselves that we're already in the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, which the Mashal says, in Megillah, in the Gemara Megillah, the Mashal says that when it says Asida Eretz Yisrael Shetis, and I'm sorry, that it says that eventually all the Bate Knesses, Bate Midrashas will be entered Eretz Yisrael. So Mashal says that also a place that has Kedusha, and the Chasam Sofer says this is a place where a person performs their Seder. So we're already in Eretz Yisrael. At the end of the Seder, we're in a place of Nirtzah on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, that on the level of Eretz Yisrael. Then, right following Lashana Haba Yerushalayim, there's a custom, there's a piyut, there's a small piyut, a small little poem that's recited, that is also from Yosef Toiv Ilam. Rabbi Yosef Tov Ilam, like when we mentioned before with the actual Simonei HaSeder himself, was one of Rashi's Rebbes. The Rashi quotes him as one of his Rebbes, one of his teachers. And the whole Simonei HaSeder is connected with the school of Rashi, the Machzor Vitri, and other Svarim that the Sefer Pardes that talk about the Simonei HaSeder. So this piyut is also from Rabbi Yosef Tov Ilam. And in the piyut, he says, Chasal Siddur Pesach L'choseh. Chasal Siddur Pesach. Says that Chasal Siddur Pesach means we have finally concluded the order of Pesach, whether you say it or not, whether it's your minig or not. But this is definitely a minig yisol for certain people to say. And the Chasal Siddur Pesach, when you say the word Chasal Siddur Pesach, if you look at the letters, the Chasal Siddur Pesach is actually an acronym of Pesach backwards. It's Ches Samach Pei and Pei Samach Ches, which the idea is that at the end of the Seder you reach a madrega that's beyond the regular order of the Seder of Pesach. Now we're reaching a place of beyond transcendence, but we're moving from step by step by step till we get to a point of Nirtzah, which is the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And just like Klal Yisrael, after they reach a level of Daba Atika of Tola Milsa, they reach a place of silence by the splitting of the sea, and they're told to Matitzak Alai, why are you crying to me? Daba B'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael, why are you crying to me? Now you have to reach a place that is transcendent of sound. It's like the perfect silence, comfortable silence when you feel connected to someone that you don't feel the need to speak. There's the uncomfortable silence when you still feel constricted and you can't speak and you can't be expressive. Then you become so comfortable and so comfortable and so easy with the other person that you also are comfortable to be with them in a place of silence. That's the level of one level. Then there's a higher level because silence represents the level of ayin, nothingness, emptiness, the absence of sound. But the highest madrega of keser, the highest madrega of keser is actually keser is yesh yesh. The highest level of keser is the ultimate that includes both the silence and the sound, both the manifestation and the unmanifested, both both physicality and spirituality. That's the ultimate level of the highest level of the essence of the Creator, Kaviyachol, of the keser of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the crown. So the crown is a place that includes both silence and sound, and that's exactly what happened after they crossed the sea. After they crossed the sea, they split the sea. They crossed to the other side. There's Oz Yashem Moshe. They sang a song from a place of Oz, which is the level of Oz is Aleph Zayin, which is Ches, which is 8. They reached a point of transcendence where now they were able to sing from a place of deep silence. It wasn't, sometimes a person sings from a place of sound, that they feel an urge that they have to express themselves. So therefore, sometimes they can express themselves in words, some they can express themselves in a tune, some they can express themselves in music or poetry, but there's a need to be expressive. And then there's a higher level where the sound emanates from a place of being and a place of stillness and a place of silence. That's the highest level of Shira. That's the level where a person reaches at the end of the Seder. And therefore, there is many different customs of how we wrap up the Seder. So generally, Minik Chabad is not to say these passages. Some say, Rabbi's father said Shir Shir, and there was the Minik Amukabalim, but in general it's not. But there's a Minik Yisrael, very serious Minik Yisrael, to sing these songs that seem to be very, I don't want to say superficial or silly or almost like drunken tunes, like 100 bottles of beer on the wall, or who knows one, who knows two. It seems like to be very childlike songs, but there's a very big depth to it. The Chidah, there's a tshuva from the Chidah, one of the great Sephardic rabbis, Chaim Shol Tshuva Chavches. The Chidah writes that there was a person that was making fun of these songs, and the community was very upset at him, and they put him in a cherem, and there was a very big to-do, and they asked the Chidah if they did the right thing, and the Chidah said, yes, this is correct. These are very deep, very, very deep passages of piyutim, of songs, of personal songs, of spontaneous tunes that was said by the greats of Israel, and therefore there's very great depth to these songs. For example, this one example is Chad Gadya, where we're not going to go into the entire Chad Gadya. We're not even going to get into a little bit of the Chad Gadya. But the Chad Gadya is a story about a person that buys a goat. and then he buys a goat for 2 zuzim, and then a cat comes and kills the goat, and then a dog comes and hits the cat, and this is a whole story. So what is this story? So the Rabbi Yonasan Eibschitz and the Gra, some people see it as a story of Jewish history, that Chad Gadya represents the goat, which is the blessings that Yaakov received from his father Yitzchak, which were really the blessings for Esav, and Esav is Adoni Seira, is connected to Soyer, Ishadama, Ishasada, they're connected to Hiri and to Sa and to Seir, and that idea, and then the idea of the progression of the history of Klal Yisrael. Some Sofer connects it literally to the Korban Pesach, that he says that you buy 2 goats. The goats represent the 2 karbonos, the 2 offerings that we offer on Erev Pesach, the Korban Pesach, and the Korban Chagiga, which you buy generally with 2 zuzim, etc. So it's a story about how we bring the Korban Pesach. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes in the Seder that the Chad Gadya is connected to a neshama coming down to this world, and the goat represents the soul, the purity of the soul, mamish the opposite of what Rabbi Yonasan says, and the idea of the purity of the soul that comes down, this white pure soul that's zuzim, that is bought for 2 zuzim. Zuzim comes from the root zuz, which means to move. It has to grow, and then a cat comes, and a cat represents a child that's very wild and eats everything, it does everything, and until finally Hashem takes the soul and returns it back to heaven. So kills the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, and brings the soul back to heaven. So this is one stage. And many years ago, I actually wrote something very quickly. I'm not going to get into the details. Be'ez Hashem Yisborach. In the near future, hopefully, I'll be able to publish this in a proper Haggadah. But I just want to tell you very quickly that the Father represents the Father in heaven. The child represents the Jewish people. It's similar to the Rav Yonasan Eibschitz, but a little different here. The 2 zuzim represent the Luchas, and the goat is the land of Israel. The cat is the Philistines. The dog is the Assyrians. The rod is the Babylonians, the fire is the Persians, the water is the Greeks, the ox is the Romans, the slaughter is the Crusades, and the angel of death and the Nazis in Shemom. And if you these animals actually represent symbolic animals, that these nations of the world that cause a lot of havoc and a lot of destruction for Klal Yisrael were all connected to these animals on a symbolic, metaphorical level. But that's for another time, Be'ez Hashem, in the future. But the point is that now we're reaching a level at the end of Nirtzah. We're coming to a place where it's what was called Mati v'loy Mati, a Nim v'loy Nim, which is a state of Keser that includes both silence and sound, both a waking state and semi-conscious sleeping state. So you're in both states simultaneously, which Reb Chaim Vital and Shari Kedusha in the 4th part talks about this madrega, this level. He says this is the ultimate level where a person has asagas, which means that there's a level where a person reaches, and especially we're gonna go to Be'ez Hashem. From Pesach, you get to Shavuos, which is Gadlus Shlishi, which is the higher level of Gadlus. You reach the Madrega of Keser, Tchias HaMesim. So you're up the whole night, and you banish sleep from yourself. So you reach a level that's beyond death. This is that Madrega. This is what happens at the Seder. We're supposed to go and reach this level. However, what actually happens also is right after Pesach, and we're not going to talk about this in great length. There's a book that was written, that's out. It's called The Month of Iyar, Evolving the Self. And this is the book, in case you want to know what the book is. And this goes to Barichas, this idea, because on one hand we say that we're getting to a place of godless, and then the entire process of Sfira Sa'omer, of counting the Omer, is actually building the vessels from a state of katnus to a place of godless, to get to a place of godless. And this is a very perplexing idea. The Arizal asks this question in Pri Etz Chaim, in Chagach Matzahs he asks this question, and we have to go through this whole discussion of how, from the Seder night, which you reach a place of godless, which is connectivity, and Gadol comes from the word God, which means a unity or a gather, something that's connected, versus katnus comes from kitata, something that's broken apart and falling and moving in different directions. And that's the difference between a child and an adult, the difference between a child and an adult. And sometimes a person could be 100 years old and be a child, be immature, because a child is scattered and has a lot of different things, has a yeshli rav, a lot of different things going on in their life. So it's katata, it's broken down. However, godless is when the person reaches a place of God where everything becomes unified, it becomes together, it becomes connectivity, and you see all the parts of your life as a seamless whole, that there's not just your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your mother, your daughter, your son, but all the parts of yourself, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a rabbi, and you're a writer, you're a musician, whatever you do in your life, all of those things are actually coalesce into one unified perception of what your reality is. So the what actually happens is, and is that 7 days later, there's going to be the zivug. That's going to be the perfect zivug, which will be on the night of Shvi Shel Pesach. But in general, the whole idea of Sfiras HaOmer is saying that it's a time of katnos. So here becomes this a very technical question, which is on the second night of Pesach. So the first night of Pesach, we don't do Sfiras, so you get to Gadlus, you reach a place of Gadlus, and that's, let's say, the place of Yichud, and every time there's a possibility of Yichud or birth, there's also the possibility of Tumah, of impurities. But let's say we get to a place of Gadlus where there is no Tumah, so you reach that place. Now the second night, we start counting Sfiras HaOmer, which means it's a place of Katnos. So and then the second Seder will be Gadlus. Again, back to Gadlus. The second Seder, which is done in the diaspora, done outside of Eretz Yisrael. So the Arizal says that the difference between the first Seder and the second Seder, and the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, always, like we spoke, I think, in the beginning, is that the first represents the process, the way it exists in a spiritual realm or an inner realm, in a pnimi level. And then the second day, or the second redo of that same event, is when this thing is being expressed now into the physical world. So therefore, on the second night of Pesach, so you got to the place of Gadlus. Now the second night of Pesach, what are you going to do? You're going to start reading. You're going to make a blessing for Sfiras HaOmer. So you're going to have Katnos before the Gadlus of Kadesh, of the second night. So for this reason, some Kabbalah, the Chidah, and the Rambam Panu say that we should actually count Sfira after the Seder, after the second night of the Seder. However, there are Shash writes in our Sholem, Lamed Beis, and this is the Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch, and this is the way the Minhag Yisrael mostly is, that we're not makpid on that. We're not so careful about that. On the contrary, we actually we count Sfiras HaOmer in Shul on the second night, which is at the level of Katnos. But that's and then we go to the level of Gadlus in the second Seder, because every level of Gadlus has a Katnos in comparison to that level. So in comparison to the Gadlus that we're going to reach on the second night of Seder, that would be considered a Katnos. But in general, after the Seder, and sometimes after Pesach, it's possible, what the Arizal says, it's possible that a person can have a shvira, can have like a down. They reach the level of the Seder, and they reach the place of Gadlus. And the Gadlus of the first night and the Gadlus of the second night, which is called Gadlus Rishon and Gadlus Sheni. Gadlus Rishon is connected, the first Gadlus, the first level of greatness is represented on the level of Bina. The second level of Gadlus is Gadlus of Chachma, which generally is connected between the matzah and the wine. But it also has to do with the beginning of the Seder. The beginning of the Seder, we reach Gadlus Rishon, which is in Kadesh. Right away, we reach Gadlus Rishon. And then we go to the end of the Seder, where we finally reach again Gadlus of Gadlus Sheni. So the Arizal says that now becomes the process of like after birth, after a woman gives birth, there's a state of Tumah, there's a state of impurity, a state of Nida, where there's a separation. And this is the idea of the Sfiras HaOmer, the time of the separation. And the separation is generally done 7 days, according to the Torah, for certain, if it's Dam Nida, etc., 7 days. So the 7 days represent, in 1 week, what would represent Shvi Shel Pesach. So that will be the time of the Yichud, that will be the time of the unity, the reunion. And then on a bigger scheme of things, it actually develops to 49 days, because 7 times 7 becomes 49. So the 49 days, we do Sfiras HaOmer, which we're really doing a badika. We're checking ourselves. The idea of checking ourselves and checking where we're holding and how we're developing Chesed Shel Chesed and Chesed Shel Gvura. Each day we're working on another midah, is similar to the process of the way a man and a woman that were separated to get their place back to a yichud. And then when we finally get to the place of the yichud will be the yichud on the level of gadlus shlishi, which is the level of keser, the experience of keser, and that's what we'll get to on Shavuos. So Pesach is the madrega, is the level of freedom from exile to get to a place of gadlus, and then we finally achieve the highest level of gadlus, of total clarity of our vision and our purpose and what we're here for when we receive the Torah, a Matan Torah on Tavanas Elokim L'Zahar Hazeh, when we receive the Torah on Shavuos. So this is the process that we're moving towards from the 15 levels until we reach the point of the higher level of gadlus. So this is B'Kitzer what the 15 steps are, and I hope that everyone was able to maybe a little do chazara. You have to remember that if you don't do chazara, if you don't repeat, you don't learn it over, it's like you plow something and you don't cut. So the ikir is chazara, the ikir is to chazar over, to repeat and learn over and over and over again until it becomes permeated, and we actually, everyone will reach the madrega, the highest levels of madregas highest levels that we can reach on the Seder night beyond Seder. And now we're going to open it up for a few questions. We said we'll end a little bit earlier so we can take a few questions. So Zachariah, I think it's your turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
If anybody has a question, please feel free to raise their hand.
I think Shlomo has a few questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had two questions from last night.
Yeah.
One question was the concept of Nirma seems to trace back, according to Pirkei Eliezer. This is from last night when the stealing of woman. It seems to go all the way back to the stealing of Yaakov's brachos, of Esau's brachos by Yaakov from him.
Clear. Didn't we speak about that? We didn't speak about it last night, but we spoke about it when we spoke about the original Bayachatz. Okay. It was the night of Pesach, and it was, and I think I mentioned even from the Ramak that he says that the whole idea of speaking in Aramaic is connected to the Sor Lazazel, that there's something about elevating that softened side, that dark side, that side of Toyu, the negative side of drawing out. Sometimes im chassid is chassid, the giveth is gaber. Sometimes you have to, when zalta lakarta halach l'nemusa, like when you're in Rome, you have to be like the Romans. If you're trying to receive something that's a little tricky, sometimes you have to be tricky to get the trickiness out. So the elevation of the mirmas, the rum, is to take the mar, the bitter, and the klipa of the suffix of Amalek, and to elevate it through this process. But yes, this is definitely clearly connected to this idea.
Perfect. So you have to.
Yeah. What's the second?
That's a good example. I have to do for that. Number two was about the doors of the idea of closing the doors and then opening the doors. It reminds me of Noach. By the table, there's a pasuk that talks about him closing it, but also opening it, and by Lot closing it. I'm not sure if there's an opening as well.
And
if there was a connection, like how does that apply to Apipnimius?
You know, the word is that we could say that Tevas Noach, the Baal Shem Tov says that Tevas Noach is ois, that Boil Teva is ois that Tefillah, ois that Torah. It means the words of Torah and Tefillah. Boil Teva means enter into the cocoon of these things. The Tzara Tasla Teva, it should be illuminated. Your words of Torah, your words of prayer should be illuminated. You should enter it fully. But then at some point, Hashem says, Tzeila Teva. Hashem has to tell Noach that it's beautiful that you spend so much time in the Teva and you reach high spiritual madregas, but now at Tzeila Teva, you have to actually go out into the world and transform the world and do a tikkun for the Chet Eitzadas. Noach he ends up doing a vineyard because he thinks that's when he's going to create a tikkun, but he ends up getting drunk, which is a whole fast-setting medrash Tanchuma, which says that there was a pig and there was a monkey and there was a lion that got involved with the blood to make this whole mishagas, this craziness that when you get drunk, you first act like a pig, like you act dirty. I'm not saying against anything against pig. What I'm saying the idea is that then you act wild and you think you're strong and then you fall on the ground. But this is what Noach had to do. But his real tikkun was Seila Teva. He has to go out of the Teva. So we could say that the opening up the door, like we said yesterday, that really the opening of the door on some level has to do with the Korban Pesach. That when we eat the Korban Pesach, we have to be Salabayas. Everyone has to do a tikkun for their own family. That's why that's a tikkun for the das that Yosef was sold to Mitzrayim through his brothers, which is the breaking apart of das. So we have to do a tikkun for das. Therefore, the Seder is specifically spent with our family, because that's the way we're creating a tikkun for das. So we're spending time with our family. We're creating a tikkun, elevation, an idea of das, which is the idea of yichud. We're creating, but then at the end of the Seder, and that's why the Korban Pesach is only for Selabayis. Only people that are nominated to begin with in the Seder can participate in the Korban Pesach and the offering of Pesach. So after we bench, so that's after the Korban Pesach, we're ready to do the grace after the meal. Now we open up our doors and we say, now anyone that can come in, everyone can enter. But we can also see it as an opening in the other direction. That we're actually walking outside, and this is the custom to walk out the door, is really withdrawing down the Kedusha that we experience in the Seder, and that Hashem should shower all the nations of the world that don't know yet the Achdus Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, that they too should become aware of the Achdus Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, that we just experience in our cocoon of our own spiritual place of the Seder.
We have a question from Harry.
Yeah.
Hi, Rav. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing shiurim. I have two questions. The first is, in the Mishnayos, we see that the Korban Pesach is the only Korban that's brought after the Tamid, the Tamishal Ben Arbaim, after the Tamid.
Yeah.
Does that add into this also, this low Seder aspect of things are like that there's Kadesh before Orchatz, part of that? And then within that also, if any part of the Korban Pesach is brought lo lishma, if you start lishma or come to lo lishma, if any of it is lo lishma, it's puzzle. So we're saying that matzah, which is afikomen, connects to Korban Pesach. Matzah is something that you don't really need das really for. You can just swallow it wholly, or you can just swallow it full, and you're yotzei. So how does that shtim that you can swallow matzah fully and you can just chug it down without any kavana, but yet if you have any part of the Korban Pesach with no kavana, it's puzzle.
Okay, so the first point that you raise is interesting, because the simple reason why the Gemara writes this, and then the Rambam in Hilchos Tefillin Musafim writes this also, the simple reason why the Korban Pesach was brought after Tamashah Ben Arbaim, so the Rambam writes from the Gemara, is that it should give us enough time, because a lot of people have to bring the offerings, and to give enough time, so we can bring it all the way up to late, because usually Tamashah Ben Arbaim was brought in the earlier part of the day, and then you're not allowed to bring any offerings after Tamashah Ben Arbaim. But what you're saying, Alpi Pnimius, is a very, I think, it makes a lot of sense, and it's beyond Seder. That's even though the normal Seder is Tamashah Shachar, and then Tamashah Ben Arbaim, and then Hekdechel of Navarim, we only bring those parts of the offering. But on Pesach, Erev Pesach, we go beyond the Seder. That's a good tzushtal. It's a good idea. Your second point, it's not about not having das. That Bala Matzah doesn't mean that you don't have das. Bala Matzah means that, yes, you're chugging it down, but you know what you're doing. Bala Matzah means you're not going through the process of chewing it and digesting it properly. So then you're yoitza. Like Mara, like we said from that Ari reads this Gemara and says that you specifically need your teeth, because you need to do Amtakas Hadin through chewing it and through breaking things down and this. But the idea of matzah represents Milchadim Nusa, represents something that's transcendent. So just to go to you from the higher level to you, but it has of course you need das. Like any mitzvah tzricha kavana, you have to need kavana. And certainly, like we said in the Shem Chasam Sofer, that matzah is the only mitzvah min haTorah that we have eating today. The only mitzvah left of eating that we have to eat min haTorah, to eat something, is matzah. So it is about das. Because a child does not have to call Abba, which is Moichin to Abba, until he had. So in other words, there is definitely the idea of das, the idea of bringing down the das, that we have to experience it. And we brought down B'Shem da Asar Ma'amoris from a Rami Pano, that actually in the time of Nafikomi, they were able to taste the time of even of the basar. So it really, it's about like the permeating something that's beyond das fully into our das. That would be more what the idea of matzah would be.
Okay, thank you. one more question.
Yeah.
In terms of the Gadlus Rishon, Gadlus Sheni, and Gadlus Shlishi, just on a derech l'maisa for a second.
Yeah.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. That Gadlus Rishon is bina, which is wine, which is you have a feeling, you have a herigish, something clicks, and you feel that.
Correct.
And Gadlus Sheni is matzah, is lamala midas, and even things don't make sense. You have a
Chachma, clarity,
Chachma,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more what on a derech l'maisa is Gadlus Shlishi?
We have to get the Shavuos. We're not ready for it. But I just say like this: that the Ramchal writes, we have to be holding that madrega. So we have to talk about it when we're there. It's hard to speak about something we don't have it yet. We'll talk about it when we get the Shavuos. But as we'll say, the Ramchal talks about this in terms of history, because the Ramchal, the Nimshal, the way the Ramchal understands the Torah Sari, is the Nimshal has to do either with the consciousness of the Navi, that everything occurs within the prophet's mind. All the spheres, everything is occurring within the mind. And also the Ramchal also is connected with time. Later the Gra develops it further, but the Nimshal in terms of so Ramchal actually takes these three things. He writes in the letter that Gadlus Rishon represents a time of the Beis Hamikdash. So where there was Asara Nisim, that we saw open miracles, we experienced the divine presence in a real time, in a geschmack way. We actually experienced it. This is what the Gadlus Rishon. He says Gadlus Sheni represents a state of Yemosei Mashiach, where the whole world will be able to experience this intuition, but he doesn't say exactly how we're going to see, what is that going to be in that state. It says Gadlus Shlishi is Tchias HaMesim, which is the resurrection. So that idea of Tchias HaMesim is some type of immortality. This is what the Arizal says, that if a person is up the entire night of Shavuos, they will not die that year. What exactly does that mean? Muftach le'shelo yamos, what that exactly means. It means spiritually dying, whatever, that's another conversation, but it means that on the Gadlus Shlishi level means that you reach a place where you transcend the duality of death. So it's such a level of clarity that we'll get the Shavuos. We'll understand what that means.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all.
We have a question from someone called Mazel Tov.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's Swedish name?
Yeah, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. I wanted to let everyone know I'm a chassid.
Simcha?
I wanted to wish Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov.
Simcha?
Yes, sir. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov.
Simcha, this is the best Mazel Tov I ever got in my life.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem.
Where
Thank
are you?
very much.
How come I can't see you?
I'm in Yerushalayim, Yera Kodesh.
So there's no visual? We can't see you to say Mazel Tov?
Hold on, I can put on the light to see me better.
I don't. Schai, how do we get to see Simcha?
You can't see me now?
Oh, now I see him. Hey, look at Mazel Tov, Simcha.
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov.
This is the best news that I heard. I am so happy for you, Simcha. Tzaddik, I'm assuming it's with the girl that we're talking about.
Yes, of course,
Okay,
of course,
beautiful.
of course. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Special people. You give a big Mazel Tov to the parents. That's the Kala. This is
Got it.
Okay. All right.
Baruch Hashem.
Simcha. Okay.
That's a big event.
All right, Schaya.
Amen. I have a quick question
Sure.
for Rav. It might be like it's Givaldic news.
All the talking this.
I think it might be like a klutz kasha,
Yeah.
but I guess the question is, in terms of discussing like these different levels of godless and godness, is that something that you can like force? Can you force godless? Like, how does one? Meaning, how do we actually align ourselves to what's happening? If it's just like some concept that's like, okay, this godless is happening now, but like if it doesn't affect us, then what's
You're right.
The question is,
you're right. You're right. The question is actually two things. First of all, how do we make sure that we receive what we need to receive on Pesach? And how do we make sure that we actually translate it into our own life? So I'll give you the second answer first, because that's also very important. It says there's an idea of lahazer gdolim alaktanim, that we're lahazer gdolim alaktanim, which metaphorically or chassidically means that we have to take the states of godless, we're in a state of godless, so it gives us clarity in the states when we're in katnos. In simple language, it means, sometimes you're in a very good place, and sometimes you're not in a good place. But sometimes when you're not in a good place, you start identifying yourself as that person that's not being in a good place. What lahazik doyle laktana means, you should always remember the good place, the better place that you were at, the more expansive place. Maybe it was Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or Pesach, whatever it was. It was a special place. It could be just even walking down the street, and you felt connected and dvekus and clarity and moichin the godless. You take that and say, who am I really? I'm really that higher person. And now I'm just struggling with my lower self. So lahazik doyle laktanim is to always remember who we are. That's the nakuda of how to draw down the godless into the next day. The same thing is also in the reverse. How do we make sure that we experience the godless? So on Pesach night, we actually have to do what Klal Yisrael did. We just have to make the vessel ready. We have to say, Kadesh, I'm ready. I'm moving out of my space that I'm here, and I'm moving to the space of Kedusha, which is sacred, and I'm saying, Hashem, I'm nothing. I'm matzah, I have nothing. It's not my deeds. It's not my thoughts. It's not my words. I'm an empty vessel. Halal avodah zarah, v'halal avodah zarah. Tonight we're starting from a clean slate. It's birth. I'm still in an embryonic state. I haven't yet been born. Hashem, give me the gift that I should feel the experience of birth. What it means to be born as a real person. What it means to be born into godless. So we have to actually, the only thing we have to do is bir chametz. The only thing that we have to do is we have to let go of all our ego perceptions and all our inflated perceptions and the chametz of our life. The chametz represents both, literally, of course, to get rid of the chametz, but the chametz represents any single narrative that became inflated. You think you're a musician, you think you're such a good musician. And because of that, I'm not saying you're not a good musician, you're a very good musician. But because of that, you think that if someone doesn't like your music, or someone, get rid of everything. Say, Hashem, tonight I'm starting off like a baby before it's born. I need you to give me birth. And give me birth in your koiches, in your potentials. Not in my small, shallow conceptions, like, oh, today, this year, I want this to happen and that to happen. That's narishkeit, that's smallness. Hashem, I want you to fill me up, to fill my vessel up in your perceptions of infinity. And I'm going to go through the mitzvahs, I'm going to do the practices that you told me to do to get to that place. So that's the kavanah. The kavanah is to let go. To let go, to allow ourselves to experience it. And we have to work. That's the only avodah we have to do. So the avodah is just getting rid of it. Getting rid of all the stuff that's going to bring us to the Seder. Just starting with a clean slate. And then let the process happen. And by the way, if you make Kiddush and you didn't experience it, you did Orchatz and didn't experience it, it's fine. At any point of time throughout the Seder, you can say, Hashem, I need to start from new. When I was younger, I didn't actually physically do this, but we went through this like on a spiritual. I used to make a Seder, and at the end, it was, let's say, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. When it was over, I would say, whoever's ready now, we're going to do the Seder all over again. Let's see if you can do the Seder. Now, again, we can't drink the wine, but let's go through. Let's see if we can do it again, because that means we're beyond the Seder. Just do something to push yourself to get to the place where Hashem says, okay, listen, this guy's really trying. And the Eibusher will give you all the brachas that you need, all the blessings that you need. Okay.
I think Simcha might have one more thing to say.
Simcha is just the freiliche kashas. What's Simcha's kasha?
You have to unmute me. You have to unmute me. Okay. Rabbi, did you actually do the Seder again?
Yes.
Gewaldig. Baruch Hashem. That's great.
You muted him. Okay. All right, Chavra. We'll see what happens next week. I don't know what's going to be. Next week is already Monday. Is Kimat Erev Yom Tov. But we'll talk to Zchariah Shlomo. We'll figure this out. And Be'ezer Hashem, we should all have a wonderful Pesach. And there's enough time to have an Asvachim and Apsachim. We should be zeichet to make the Korban Pesach and Nirtzah Yisrael b'meiru b'yameinu mamash.
Amen.
Amen.